My wife secretly used my inheritance of over $300, $0 to buy a luxury beachfront property with her affair partner, then forged my signature to sell our family home, and now she's denying everything while I'm facing legal battles I never saw coming. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy posting something like this, but here I am. Just a few months ago, I was living what I thought was a pretty normal life with my wife, Lisa. We had been married for 8 years, built a nice home, and I honestly thought we were happy. But that all changed in a heartbeat. The thing is, I found out she was cheating on me in ways I never saw coming, using my inheritance, lying, forging my signature, and even selling our family house behind my back. It started with small things, little behavioral shifts that didn't make sense at first. Lisa became more secretive, more dismissive. She'd leave her phone around, but then suddenly she'd be extra cautious about it, hiding the screen when I came near. She'd get defensive whenever I asked about her day, brushing it off like I was paranoid. I told myself I was overthinking it, trying to ignore the nagging feeling that something was wrong. Then I started noticing money missing from our joint account. Not a lot at first, just a few hundred here and there, but it added up quickly. I asked her about it and she'd laugh it off, saying she'd been shopping online or treating herself. I didn't think much of it until I saw a strange withdrawal from our account for a hefty sum. Over $300, $0. That's when my stomach dropped. I knew I hadn't authorized that. I checked the bank statements more carefully, and that's when I saw the real shocker. My inheritance, the money I'd gotten from my dad's estate a couple of years ago, was gone. Completely wiped out. I confronted her about it and she just rolled her eyes, acting like I was overreacting. "You're so paranoid," she snapped. "It's my money too, and I can do what I want with it." But I knew better. I remembered signing some documents for her to handle the accounts, but I never authorized her to use that kind of money. Something was off. I started digging deeper, looking for more clues. That's when I found out about the beachfront property. She had bought a luxury condo down in Florida, right on the beach, with someone I'd never even heard of, her supposed business partner, a guy named Mike. I found the deed in her email and it was all in her name. No mention of me or us. I was stunned. How could she do this? I was still trying to process that, and then I stumbled across something else that made my blood run cold. A series of forged signatures on the sale of our family home. She had sold the house, our house, without telling me, forged my signature and cashed out the equity. It was all so cold, so calculated. I had no choice but to confront her. I waited until she came home from work, trying to keep my voice steady, but inside I was raging. I laid out everything I'd found. The money, the property, the forged signatures. Her face twisted into this awful sneer. And she just kept lying. "You're overreacting," she spat. "You're just jealous, it's none of your business. I did all of this because I wanted a better life and you're too clueless to see that." She told me I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that I was paranoid, but I knew the truth. I felt betrayed not just by her actions but by the woman I thought I married. My mind was racing. How long had she been planning this? Was she with Mike the entire time? How could she lie so easily, so convincingly? I'd always trusted her, and now I was left with nothing but questions and a gut feeling that my entire life was a lie. I was devastated, furious, and feeling completely helpless at the same time. How do you even start to fix something like this? After that confrontation, everything changed. Lisa kept denying everything, throwing out these ridiculous excuses like I was some paranoid lunatic. She said I was imagining the whole thing, that the money was a gift or an inheritance I'd somehow forgotten about. She insisted she bought the beachfront condo for us, but I knew better. I had the emails, the bank statements, the deeds. She was lying through her teeth, and her tone was so bitchy about it, like I was the one causing all the trouble. But I wasn't about to let her gaslight me. I started digging even deeper, hearing a private investigator. I needed proof, hard evidence, because I could tell she was planning her next move. And I was right. Over the next few weeks, more stuff surfaced. I found that she had been meeting Mike at the beach condo. She'd been sneaking out late, claiming she was working late or visiting friends, but I caught her red-handed. She'd be on her phone, whispering, trying to hide her screen. That's when I saw the texts, flirty, explicit conversations that made it clear it wasn't just about some business deal. It was sex, plain and simple. That was the moment I realized she was cheating on me with this Mike guy, and she was using my money to do it. I felt sick. She'd been lying to my face, making me feel crazy, while she was out screwing around and spending my inheritance. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. All those years I thought we were a team. Turns out she'd been planning her escape for a long time. The betrayal cut deep, but what hurt even more was the cold, bitchy way she lied about everything, like she was some victim and I was the villain. I decided I had enough. I couldn't just sit back and let her keep lying and cheating. I needed to get my ducks in a row. So I started gathering everything: emails, bank statements, recorded conversations, anything I could use if I had to fight her legally or confront her in court. I knew she'd try to spin it all, but I wanted proof that couldn't be denied. The thing was, she was smart. She forged my signature on the house sale, so I couldn't just rely on the paper trail she left. I had to be smarter. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, acting innocent when I mentioned the house or money. She'd smirk and say I was jealous or crazy, that I was accusing her without cause. She called me paranoid, insecure, even threatened to leave me if I kept accusing her of cheating. I felt like I was losing my mind, caught in some nightmare I could wake up from. I was angry, yes, but mostly I was hurt. How did I get here? How did everything go so wrong so fast? The worst part was knowing she'd been lying for months, maybe longer. She'd been planning her escape, probably with Mike, while I was working hard, trusting her. I kept asking myself, why? What did I do wrong? Was I not enough? But deep down, I knew this wasn't about me. It was about her greed, her selfishness, her total disregard for the vows we took. She had turned into a stranger and I couldn't recognize her anymore. Now I was faced with a choice. Do I fight to save what's left of this marriage, or do I cut my losses and go? My mind was spinning. Every time I looked at her, I saw the woman I once loved, but now she was just a liar and a thief. I'd never felt so betrayed, and yet I knew I had to act fast before she managed to cover her tracks even more. I wasn't going to let her take everything, including my sanity. After I gathered enough evidence, I knew I had to confront her again. But this time I couldn't do it alone. I reached out to a lawyer I found through a friend, someone who specialized in financial crimes and marital disputes. I needed to understand what my legal options were, especially since she'd forged my signature and sold the house without my consent. The lawyer was straightforward and told me that I had a solid case for fraud, forgery, and possibly theft, if I could prove she took the money and sold the property against my will. The more I learned, the angrier I got. I couldn't believe she'd gone so far, so cold, using my inheritance to buy a beachfront property with her affair partner, then forging my signature to sell our family home. How could she be so ruthless? I felt like I was living someone else's nightmare. I also discovered she'd opened new bank accounts in her name, transferred money, and even set up a trust for her and Mike. It was like she was planning to run away with everything I had worked for. I decided I had to act fast. I set up a meeting with my lawyer, and we drafted a cease and desist letter demanding she return the money, stop any further transactions, and provide full disclosure of all accounts and assets. I told her that if she didn't comply, I'd take her to court. I wanted her to know I wasn't playing around. I also contacted the bank and the title company involved in the property transactions, requesting freezes on the accounts and the property titles. Meanwhile, I kept quiet around her, pretending everything was normal while secretly planning my next moves. I knew she'd try to deny everything again, so I kept recording her conversations and saving all emails and texts. I also hired a private investigator to follow her, just to confirm she wasn't hiding anything else. Every day was a roller coaster. One moment I felt hopeful, the next I was overwhelmed with despair. I kept asking myself how she could do this to us, to me. One evening she came home late, smelling of alcohol, and with that smug grin she always wore when she thought she was getting away with something. She started her usual gaslighting routine, claiming I was paranoid and jealous, that I was making everything up. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I had enough. I pulled out the evidence. The bank statements, the emails, the forged signatures. Her face paled, and for a moment I thought she might crack, but instead she just scoffed and accused me of trying to ruin her. That's when I realized she was doubling down, trying to manipulate her way out of it. But I wasn't going to let her. I knew she was lying, and I had the proof. I told her I was going to take her to court and that she'd have to face the consequences of her actions. She laughed and said I was just a jealous husband who couldn't handle losing control. I felt a mixture of rage and sadness, knowing that everything was unraveling so quickly. My life, my trust, my marriage, all hanging in the balance. I couldn't sleep that night. All I kept thinking about was how I'd been blind for so long, how she'd betrayed me in the worst way possible. I kept wondering if she ever loved me or if I'd just been some fool she used to get her hands on my money. The pain was sharp, but I also knew I had to stay strong. I wasn't going to let her ruin me. I was determined to fight this, no matter how ugly it got, because at the end of the day, I deserved better than this betrayal. I deserved honesty, respect, and the truth. The legal process moved faster than I expected once I filed the paperwork and presented my evidence. The judge issued a temporary order freezing her assets, including the beachfront property and the accounts she'd opened in her name. I felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. Relief that I was finally taking back some control, but anxiety about what was coming next. Lisa was furious. She called me every name in the book, screamed at me over the phone, and accused me of trying to ruin her life. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. Her words just bounced off. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was just jealous of her new life with Mike, that she bought the condo because she deserved it, that I was too controlling. She even had the nerve to say I was the one cheating, implying that I was the bad guy in all of this. But I had the proof. Her texts, her emails, the forged signatures, they all told a different story. I was done listening to her lies. Meanwhile, I started preparing for the court hearing. My lawyer told me that the evidence I had was strong enough to get a full accounting of all her assets and possibly recover the money she stole. But I knew this was just the beginning of a long battle. She was already trying to spin her side, claiming I was an abusive, paranoid husband who was trying to ruin her reputation. That was her usual tactic: blame me, gaslight me, make me question my own sanity. But I refused to back down. I had witnesses, recordings, bank statements, things that proved her guilt. As the court date approached, Lisa's demeanor changed. She became more aggressive, more bitchy. She'd lash out at me whenever she could, calling me insecure, accusing me of not trusting her, even claiming I was trying to control her. But every time she opened her mouth, I just remembered what she'd done, how she used my inheritance, sold our home without telling me, forged my signature, bought a condo with her affair partner. I couldn't ignore it anymore. She was a liar, a thief, and a cheat. One day she threw a fit in front of our neighbors, screaming that I was trying to ruin her reputation. I wanted to tell them the truth, but I held back. I knew this wasn't about airing dirty laundry in public, it was about justice. Still, it was hard not to feel humiliated. I'd always been the nice guy, the one who thought I was doing the right thing by trusting her. Now I was the guy fighting for what's right, even if it meant losing her forever. I also started to realize how much this whole ordeal had changed me. I used to be easygoing, trusting, and optimistic. Now I was guarded, suspicious, and exhausted. But I also learned something about myself, how strong I could be when pushed to the edge. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me or destroy what little dignity I had left. I had to stand tall, fight for what was right, and accept that some betrayals cut so deep they leave scars you carry forever. The day of the court hearing finally arrived. I sat there, feeling like I was on trial myself. Lisa showed up with her lawyer, her face tight with anger. She tried to spin her stories, claiming I was an overbearing husband who was trying to control her. But the judge wasn't buying it. The evidence was too overwhelming. When my lawyer presented everything, emails, forged signatures, bank records, the judge quickly saw through her lies. The court ordered her to repay every penny, to relinquish the property, and to cease any further transactions related to the assets she'd stolen. That moment felt like a huge victory, but I knew it wasn't over. She was furious, and I could see her plotting her next move. She stormed out of the courtroom, yelling that I was ruining her life, that I'd pay for this someday. Honestly, I didn't care about her threats anymore. I felt a strange sense of relief, knowing I'd finally done everything I could to fight back. The betrayal still haunted me, but at least I had some closure. I had taken control, and I was going to rebuild somehow. Now I'm left with the aftermath, dealing with legal battles, trying to piece my life back together, and figuring out how to trust again. It's been a brutal ride, but I've learned a lot about myself. Trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep, but I also discovered that I'm stronger than I thought. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I won't let this break me. Not entirely. I've got a long way to go, but I'm moving forward. And if there's one thing I'd tell anyone in a similar situation, it's this. Don't ignore the signs, get help early, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right, even if it costs you everything. The months that followed the court victory were a whirlwind of legal procedures, emotional exhaustion, and trying to pick up the pieces. I spent countless nights awake, replaying everything in my mind. The lies, the betrayal, the way she looked at me like I was some obstacle she had to overcome. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to her true nature. It's a strange feeling, knowing you loved someone who turned out to be so different from the person you thought you knew. I moved out of the house she sold without my consent. The place was empty now, just memories and her lies filling the silence. I found a small apartment nearby, just enough to get by while I sorted through the mess she left behind. I was angry, yes, but mostly I was just numb. I couldn't believe I'd been so naive. All those years I thought we had something real. Turns out she was just using me to fund her little schemes and her affair with Mike. I also started therapy. It was hard at first, admitting I'd been so betrayed, so taken in by her lies, but it helped. It forced me to confront the pain, the anger, and the sense of betrayal I'd been suppressing. I realized I wasn't the only victim in this. My kids, who loved their mother, were also caught in the crossfire. I made the decision to focus on rebuilding my own life, for their sake if nothing else. I still loved them, and I wanted to be the dad they needed, not the broken man I felt like inside. Lisa, of course, didn't go quietly into the night. She kept trying to manipulate the situation, calling me nonstop, sending angry texts, accusing me of ruining her life. She insisted she was the real victim, that her affair was just sex, and that I was the one who destroyed everything. She even tried to turn the kids against me, saying I was a monster for breaking up the family. That was the hardest part, seeing how her lies affected them. I had to be the bigger person, keep my distance, and let her spin her stories. I couldn't let her poison their minds. Meanwhile, I started focusing on my career again. I threw myself into work, trying to find some normalcy. I also began dating again, cautiously. Trust doesn't come easy after what I've been through, but I realized I deserved happiness. I found a woman named Emily, who's kind, honest, and patient. She's been a breath of fresh air, and slowly I'm learning to trust again. I don't think I'll ever forget what happened, but I refuse to let it define me. Looking back, I see how much I've grown. I learned that sometimes people are willing to betray you for their own gain. That money and greed can turn even the most loving relationships into lies and theft. But I also learned that I have strength I never knew I had. I can survive this. I can rebuild my life, even after such a devastating betrayal. And I want others going through something similar to know, don't let the betrayal break you completely. There's a way out, a way forward, even if it's messy and painful. I'm still healing. Some days are better than others, but I know I'm moving forward step by step. This experience has taught me to be cautious, to value honesty, and to never ignore the warning signs. I don't think I'll ever fully trust again, not in the same way, but I will keep my eyes open and my heart guarded. Because at the end of the day, I owe it to myself to be happy and to protect what's left of my sanity. And I hope that anyone reading this who's going through something similar finds the strength to do the same. Now that I've come this far, I can honestly say I'm a different person than I was when all this started. The betrayal cut so deep, it reshaped everything I believed about trust, love, and loyalty. But it also forced me to face my own strength, the strength I didn't even know I had. I learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to realize what truly matters, that honesty and integrity are worth more than any amount of money, and that no amount of wealth is worth sacrificing your peace of mind or your dignity. Looking back, I realize how blind I was to her manipulations. I was so eager to believe in the fairy tale, I ignored the warning signs. The secretive texts, the sudden absences, the growing distance, all signs I should have paid closer attention to. But I also learned that confronting the truth, no matter how painful, is the only way to break free from the lies. Facing her, exposing her, was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the most necessary. Because sometimes the only way to reclaim your life is to face the darkness head-on. The legal battle was brutal, but it was also a wake-up call. I saw how greed and selfishness could destroy a marriage, and how important it is to stand up for yourself, even when it feels impossible. I'm grateful I had the courage to fight back, to hold her accountable, and to refuse to let her steal everything I worked for. It's not just about the money, either. It's about reclaiming my sense of self, my dignity, and my future. Now, I focus on rebuilding, one day at a time. I've learned to trust again, but cautiously. I keep my guard up, not because I don't want love, but because I know how fragile it can be. I cherish my kids more than ever, and I've learned to be honest with myself about what I want from life. The scars from this betrayal will always be there, but they serve as reminders of what I've survived and what I refuse to accept anymore. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: don't ignore the signs. Don't let fear or love blind you to the truth. And when betrayal happens, because it does, you have to find the strength to stand up, fight for what's right, and rebuild from the ashes. Life is messy, unpredictable, and sometimes cruel, but it's also filled with hope, resilience, and the possibility of renewal. I don't have all the answers, and I still have days where I feel broken. But I know I'm stronger than my pain. I've learned that even in the darkest moments, there's a way forward, and I hope everyone out there who's been betrayed finds the courage to face their truth, no matter how hard it is. Because in the end, the only way to heal is to confront what's been hidden, accept what's been lost, and keep moving forward, trusting that someday, life will be better again.